Hi, it's Robbie with Inner Power Life, and I am back with a follow-up to my previous video about boundaries and compromise. And in this video, I'll be talking about establishing and maintaining boundaries without guilt. And as I discussed in the previous video, guilt is a tool that abusers love to use. It puts them in a position in their mind of being the victim and not taking responsibility for their behavior. It also gives them fuel and leverage against you. And most abusers know that their targets are, for the most part, very good people who have a conscience and want to be kind to other people and want to be emotionally stable and mature and have healthy interactions. And they will take the good intentions of their target and turn it to weaponize it against them. And so dealing with this can be very tricky for a target because the abusers can be very good at using guilt. And they can say, based on if it's a family relationship or partner, or I'm your best friend, or I've done so much for you, or this kind of thing, to make you start second guessing your legitimate boundaries. And so a good way to help yourself navigate this and not get sucked into the false guilt trap is to evaluate the validity of your boundaries to yourself, because we tend to stay in our heads a lot anyway. You'll probably be doing this anyway. So assess the situation. Are you establishing boundaries because this person is being abusive and harmful to you? Are they asking you to make concessions that are harmful to you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, sexually, in any other way? Are they asking you to do something that's morally wrong in your moral paradigm? Have you tried to ask them not to do that and they continue to trample on you? In that case, yes, your boundaries are absolutely 100% valid, and the majority of the time you will find that your boundaries are 100% valid. Now, some of us who have been victims of abuse do have a tendency to become avoidant. And in those cases, avoidant personalities can tend to use artificial boundaries to put up walls between themselves and even good people, kind people who aren't doing anything to them, but may be inadvertently triggering. So a good person could be triggering you, can be completely kind and not actually harming you, but because you have core wounds that you may not be ready to look at, you will throw up hard boundaries, sometimes very arbitrary and sometimes harsh and completely unexpected, as a wall to block yourself from having to deal with the triggers and the emotions and everything that comes with that. You will know if what you are doing is unkind to a good person. So you will feel a twinge of guilt or conscience because you know that this person isn't doing anything to you legitimately. And you know the difference between somebody actually literally attacking you in a coercive, threatening way and a kind person who accidentally overstepped something that triggers you. So once you make that assessment and determine that this really is a situation where you need to have firm boundaries, a good way to prepare yourself to approach the abuser, and going forward will be very, very helpful, is to monitor your internal dialogue to be affirming to you and your decision. So you can remind yourself, I deserve to be able to set boundaries. I deserve healthy relationships. I am a good person. I deserve to be respected. And this kind of thing, to counteract all the negative dialogue that the abuser has put in, that you aren't allowed to have boundaries, you don't deserve it, you're a bad person, or you're wrong. You'll have their dialogue going on in your head. It's up to you to change that. And you counter that by having your own internal dialogue that reaffirms the validity of your position and your worth as a person. And this can sound very basic, But for survivors of abuse and bullying, we often have had our self-concept so attacked and so beaten down that we do actually have to proactively take steps to affirm our own self-worth to ourselves. So this is a good practice to get into anyway as you start moving through your core wounds, is to counteract all these negative thoughts, these dialogues, these accusations, the old stories that people have given you, with the new, true, positive story of the valuable, empowered person that you actually are. So get into a habit of doing that, and it'll make it so much easier for you to set and maintain your boundaries. When you do decide that you have to set boundaries, it is essential that you state those as clearly and calmly and in a mature way as you can. If you're dealing with like a physical harm situation, you don't have to sit and talk about it. Get out and be safe. But otherwise, express to the other person, this makes me uncomfortable. I am not going to engage in this kind of behavior. Outline the parameters. If you don't want them talking to you again, if you want them to stay away from you, if you're not going to fudge the number on a report, or you're not going to engage in whatever kind of activity, you have the right to do that. It may be easier in some cases, if you can, to write it and send it to them so that it's documented and you're also not dealing with a face-to-face confrontation. If you do have to do it face-to-face, just try to be as calm as possible for your own peace of mind, so that when you walk away, you aren't feeling guilty that you blew up or that you didn't act right. Sometimes situations can be volatile, and if you're in a very agitated state, it can be harder, but make every effort to be the mature, reasonable adult. If for some reason you have decided you need to have some space between you and a kind person who's not hurting you, for the sake of the kind person, let them know, hey, I know that you mean to be kind and you mean well. I have a lot going on right now, and I think I need to take a step back from this conversation or our interactions for a while, or the way that we're interacting or discussing certain topics or whatever it is. If they're not hurting you, be kind to them and let them know this is you dealing with your stuff, and you're going to have to take space. For the abuser, don't linger around and let them keep talking to you about it, because then they'll try to drag out the guilt and the threats, or they might blow up or whine or whatever their methods are. Lay your stuff out and then remove yourself from the situation, and don't go back. Let that be your final word of, this is my final decision and this is what we're doing. Obviously, there might be some nuances you have to deal with it if it's a work thing and you're not ready to be that hard, but do your best to define your parameters and stick to them. In some cases, you may have to go no contact or minimal contact with the bully or abuser. If you have to do that, then cut them off to the extent you can. And that can also include letting mutual acquaintances or family members know, hey, I don't want to hear about what this person is doing. Do not share my information with this person. If you have kids or there's something like that that you have to interact, do the best you can to maintain minimal contact and minimal information sharing, so that they don't use something as a leverage to try to come at you. But just learning that you do have the right to stand in your power and establish boundaries to protect yourself without feeling guilty is huge, because you do have this right. You always have a right to protect yourself. You do not owe the abuser an explanation in depth. You don't owe them the rest of your life. You can take your power back and kick that entire situation to the curb, and you'll find that as you start maintaining boundaries and not getting sucked into the guilt and the threats and the drama and the trauma, that you will become less and less likely to be involved in situations where that's even an issue. because unhealthy people will tend to stay away from you. You won't be drawn to unhealthy people and situations, and you'll be much more likely to get yourself out of it when you start sensing, hey, this is that old story, this is that old pattern that I'm not in anymore because I value myself too much to be engaged in this or to let somebody impose false guilt for me honoring and respecting myself and taking care of myself. If you are interested in doing the inner work to find out your core wounds and your traumas and to work through those so that you don't keep the mind body trauma loop going, I would love to help you. I'm a root cause therapy practitioner, and that is a therapy that allows you to access the root cause of it and process that energy out of your body so that you don't keep trauma stored in your body and triggering the same thought patterns and the same way you speak and interact with people that get you stuck in the same situations over and over again. Once you have that cleared out, it's so much easier for you to rewire your mind in a healthy way, and you don't get drawn back into these same patterns. And from a healthy place, then you can actually start moving forward with the goals and intentions that you have set for yourself. If you want to work with me, I can be reached at robbiegean@innerpoweredlife.com. The links will be here in the video. If you are finding these discussions helpful, please do like and subscribe. This enables me to get these discussions in front of more people in our community who may be looking for some extra support in their journey and are feeling isolated and without someone who understands. And for those of us who have been targets of bullying and abuse, we know what it's like to feel isolated and sometimes actually be very isolated. So please do like and subscribe. I will be back with you soon. My next series, I will likely be addressing the primary core wounds, what those are, how they can come about, how that manifests, and what we can do to work through those. Until I see you again, take care and remember that you are a divinely created being. You are here for a purpose. You are awesome. You do deserve better. You deserve healthy interactions. You deserve a good life. You deserve to take your power back. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.